if you are the Detroit Red Wings, you have to, and I mean absolutely positively have to, make this free agent signing tomorrow. All right, so NHL free agency starts tomorrow, and the Red Wings' outlook is pretty good for at least the salary cap. They have $31 million in cap space. Right now, they're spending about $51 million, and in the NHL, the minimum is $60 million. So the Red Wings actually have to spend $9 million. That today they picked up a few player options, but they've got plenty of room to work with. And just going over this roster outlook, I like what we have at both winger and center. I mean, obviously you have Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond, Jacob Vrana on the first line. That's pretty good. Suter, Bertuzzi, Erne, second line, maybe Zadina or Gagner fights for that spot. I think that the wingers and centers look pretty good. I'm not saying you don't add a couple of pieces, but man, for defensemen, this team is absolutely brutal. There is one player on this team that would start on every NHL roster, and I think you know who that is. Mo Seider. I didn't even need to say his name. But otherwise, we're pretty much banking on a guy coming out of the minors and being Mo Seider, being a Calder Cup candidate. And I'm not sure Edvinsson is ready to handle those kind of expectations. So, the Red Wings absolutely need some additions at the defenseman position. And unfortunately for free agency, this is a pretty weak class for that position. So this is the guy they need to sign. His name is John Klingberg, who played the last 8 seasons with the Dallas Stars. So Klingberg has a pretty good Corsi percentage, will at the very least be a good physical defender, but he's also the kind of guy that can get you 35 to 40 points a season, which is excellent for a defenseman. He's 29 years old. I like the fact that he's not in his upper 30s. So if you're Steve Yzerman and you're serious about building a contending team within a few years, you sign this guy to a 3 or 4 year deal, worth about 8 or 9 million, which you definitely have the cap space to do. Then you have a first line with Seider and Klingberg at defenseman. That looks pretty scary. And then Edvinsson doesn't have the pressure, to perform as highly as Seider. He can play on the second line with Hronek, who's a pretty good second liner. Then I think you're in pretty good shape. Your first 2 lines look pretty good. Obviously this team still needs to build over the next few years, but if they sign Klingberg, this is a team that could make the postseason next year. The Red Wings look pretty good at goalie. They just signed Husso, still have Nedeljkovic. Both guys are young and talented. You look pretty good at the winger positions, the center positions. Now, if you're too deep at defenseman, you spend the rest of your money, about 20 million, I would say, 17 to 20 million. And you get some young guys that have shown some promise but haven't quite produced yet. Those are the kind of guys that you're hoping to find a diamond in the rough. And oftentimes those guys are not the most expensive players, and they can really be something special. That's kind of what we tried to do with Suter, making a trade for him. Trading on upside. And I hope he has a bigger year this year because Larkin needs someone behind him. Maybe Veleno also steps up as he showed some promise last year. But the Red Wings, with their terrible depth at defenseman and with this pretty weak free agent class, Chris Letang already signed with the Penguins. Who else is there? Nick Leddy. We tried that last year. But Klingberg is a guy that can make an immediate impact and that can elevate this from, a below-average team to a playoff team. And then in a few years, you make some more signings, you make some more draft picks, some guys come up, maybe Casper comes up and is really good. Then this team is starting to look like what we expected when Steve Yzerman walked in the building. We knew it was going to take some time, but we figured that eventually this would be a roster competing for Stanley Cups. And we're not there yet. And Klingberg wouldn't get us there yet, but he would move us a lot closer, especially on a 3 to 4 year deal. He's playing in a contract season 3 years down the road with Sider, Edvinson on the second line, and then some more additions. It's very, very exciting. But if you're the Red Wings, you can't miss this opportunity. And if you don't get Klingberg, your defense is going to struggle again. It's going to be one of the worst in the league again. Even with Lalonde at coach, I expect some improvement. But then again, we gave up so many goals last year that improvement is not really a high standard. You get Klingberg, you can make significant improvement. And Husso and Nedeljkovic, they need some help. You can't give up high percentage shots all game. Even the best goalies can't stop all of those. So it is absolutely paramount that the Red Wings get pretty much the only defenseman available in this class. And then you sign some low-risk, high-reward players, with the rest of your money. But I think that that's going to be the key thing. And I trust that Steve Yzerman can get it done because he already got one of the best free agent goalies. This was a pretty thin market for goalies as well. And he did a great thing, trading a third-round pick with the Blues to get Husso. And Husso had about a 93% save percentage. That's exactly what we need on this team. Also, pretty young, 28 years old. Nedeljkovic still is very young. For goaltenders, if you're under 30, that's still very young. It usually takes a while to come up. And Cossa is extremely young, and it's going to take him a little while, as great as he's looked in the minors. So, yeah. Sign Klingberg, and let's build for the future. Let's make sure we're not going into the season with this as our first line. All right, thank you all for watching. Let's go Red Wings, and I'm excited to see what happens in free agency tomorrow. We'll see